Greetings, everybody. Welcome to week 10. Hey, Chef. Hey, everybody. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. How about yourself?
Good, good. Thanks. Hi, greetings, everybody. We are nearing the end, closer than you think, right? A 12-week class. Um, so we're wrapping it up. How, first and foremost, did everybody's preservation week go for produce? Did you dry? Did you make the sauerkraut? Did you jam? Did you make pickles? Any positive learning experience? Any observations? Anything that anybody wants to share? Oh, we got some thumbs up.
I jammed and dried.
Canned and dried, okay.
Jam.
Awesome. I see Dawn's hand is up. Dawn?
Sorry, trying to figure out how to unmute myself. I've pickled a lot before. I've grown gardens and dilly beans and pickles. And I had on hand, I always use the white vinegar. I had on hand was the apple cider vinegar, and I used that. And I have to say, when I didn't use the pickling spice, I used my own pickling recipe because I didn't have the pickling spice. But it's the same idea. Anyways, the apple cider vinegar definitely changed the effect of how my pickles turned out.
In what sense? Texture, flavor? What were the things that you noticed?
And the flavor. The white distilled vinegar is more mild. The apple cider is just a little bit, I want to say harsher vinegar. And I love anything vinegar, but yeah, it was, I would say harsher.
Okay, awesome. Good observation. So then that's one of the things where you say, okay, do I like that harshness? Does that work well in the dish that I want to use it in? Or the next time I make it, do I need to adjust the ratio? Maybe you mix up your vinegars or you add a little bit of more sugar, something to balance that aggressive edge from the apple cider. Also, all vinegars have different levels of acidity, right? pH. So those can be harsher and milder depending upon where you're getting the ciders, whether it's distilled white, apple cider, red wine, rice wine, the list goes on and on. So,
right.
Good observation.
Thank you.
Pickled kohlrabi. Yeah, kohlrabi is fantastic. Raw, pickled, everything. Cool. All right. Chef, any observations that you have made that you would like to share?
There was a lot of good work. A couple of things to note. Just remember, you're going to hear it a ton in a couple of weeks in your externship. Just label and date everything. We talked about it last week, but honestly, it is that important. But no, I did see a ton of good work. And then always, I said it on people that did the strawberry jam, always take a little bit of it and then cool it down and see if you're happy with the taste and the consistency. Because if you went through the full canning process and you were going to let something sit for like 2 years, afterwards, you're not going to want to adjust it after 2 years. You want to make sure that everything is set and ready to go before you do your storing. On jam, it's a little bit different because pectin, gelatin, reductions, addition of sugar, until it's actually cooled down, it won't show you its true consistency. When it's hot and you add in that pectin in, it still looks a lot liquidy than it actually would be otherwise. That's awesome, Sandra.
Fantastic.
Nice.
Wow. Awesome. Great. Yeah. Preserving, pickling, dehydrating, drying, jamming. This is all about what are you saving for the long term, right? How can you bring that taste of the season? Remember, the whole part of this is you're harvesting stuff that's in season, right? You're preserving it for later. How does that come into play later? When you're creating a menu, for example, and you've pickled some blueberries in summer, and then come around maybe wintertime or fall, you say, you know what? I want to bring those pickled blueberries out. How can I incorporate them? Can I put that into a salad? Could I use that as part of a duck or wild game dish, right? You bring back that flavor that you captured with it. So it's very cool because you can actually play with the seasons in that sense. You get a longer season of those, obviously in varied textures and flavors, but they're still there. So great. Well, on that note of just moving forward, right? Looking to the future, makeups, if you're missing anything, get those in now. All right. Like now. Work this weekend, knock it out. Okay. Just drop it in there as soon as you can. The sooner you get that in there, the sooner you can get feedback. If you need to fix something, you can. And your grade's going to go up. So don't miss out on that opportunity, and don't be late on it. All right. Don't add more to your plate, because as we get to week 11, 12, as you all remember, I'm not sure if you all have had a week, the end of a class like this yet, but we will have those week 12 assignments being due on a Sunday, not the normal due date. So that week 12 is a shortened week. You have live session on Wednesday, and then you turn around and you've got to get that week 12 submitted by that Sunday evening at midnight, prior to midnight. So that's a shortened week. You don't want to be crushing extra assignments up to that before in week 11. So we're in week 10 right now. It's the time to just grab the bull by the horns, knock it out. All right. You're getting ready for externship, as Chef Greg was talking about. Prioritize, knock things out, be ahead of the game. All right. Organization is key. So, all right. Now that that stuff is said, let's talk a little bit about preserved meats. All right. Who here likes, enjoys, or has ever had preserved meats? What are some types of preserved meats? Okay, we got jerky, so drying and salting. What else? Bacon, all right. What process is happening to bacon? What do we know what happens to bacon? How do you process that? We got summer sausage in the mix. Yep, great. Smoking, all right. Yep, that is one of the techniques, curing and smoking for bacon. There can be cured and smoked or unsmoked bacon. What other types of cured meats have you had? Preserved meats. What else? Make your own. Well, I'm not surprised, Sandra. That's wonderful. What are some of the things you make? What are some other things? Come on. What other types of preserved meats, everybody? Bacalao, yeah. Salted fish, great. What else? Salamis, yeah. So not just salamis, but all those types of cured and dried sausages. What else? Anything else? Who's ever had like deli meats? Hot dogs, yeah, of course. Deli meats, those are preserved, right? Those are processed, salt's added. Those deli meats sit in the shelf for quite a long time, right? So those are obviously preserved. Okay, so it's not just this kind of wow far off thing. These are still things that we're using day in and day out, right? Hot dogs, salamis, sausages, bacon, bacalao. The list goes on and on. Eggs, right? That's protein that's getting cured as well. So, who knows where a dish called cassoulet comes from? Or have anybody thoughts? Has anybody ever heard of it? Is there anything coming up in the chat? I don't
You
see.
have a guess for French and you have a guess for Italian.
French, all right, way to go. And Italy, hey, you know what? The border's really close. But yes, French, oui, oui, it is, okay? Cassoulet is a dish that hails from France, and it is a long, slow-cooked dish with beans. And I'm going to pull up an image so you guys can see what it looks like. And it oftentimes has duck confit. It is one of the big components of the cassoulet from the southwest of France. Remember when we made that pate back in week 7? And we talked a little bit about foie gras. right? That's that region, Southwest France again. So they've got a lot of ducks, right? They're using it. So one of the most traditionally confit items are duck legs, okay? As you can see, this casserole is a really slow cooked bean dish with then some sausages, usually some chunks of ham, as well as that confit duck, right? So all meat products that have been pulled from the larder, right? That cold storage for the winter time. And you're going down into those dried beans, right? You're pulling those out. You're pulling out that smoked cured ham. You're pulling out a little confit chicken. And you're going to whip up something absolutely incredible that doesn't take a lot of fresh produce, right? Because we're in the winter. We need something warm, satisfying, fattening, give us energy, right? So that is a little bit about cassoulet, all right? Now, as I was saying, the duck confit is oftentimes part of that. Duck confit is also used, you'll see that at a lot of French restaurant masters with possibly a lentil salad, okay? Another great classic French presentation of that. Really delightful. Now, who has heard of the word confit for something that's not related to meat at all? Has anybody ever heard of something that was confit?
You have a potato.
Potato. Well, we will be cooking potatoes. What else? We just made marmalades and jams, and does anybody remember of perhaps a sweet thing called a confiture?
Oui, confiture.
Oui. Okay. Who was that? Who speaks French?
Carlene.
Okay. Wonderful. So, Carly, tell us, what is confiture?
Confiture is sort of like the preservative that we made from the strawberry. You can also make it with other fruits, grapefruit and other sort of fruits that you can use that method to make it.
Wonderful, exactly. So confit, for the general term, is basically applied in two ways. One that's cooked in low and slow in fat, which we'll be doing for the execution of this process, but there's also the confit of sugar water, okay, or oil, okay? So those are the two things. What Carlene was just talking about, you can use all these different fruits and you cook it in sugar, right, and water, and you cook it down and you preserve it. It is different than in a jam or a jelly because we're not talking about using pectin. We're not talking about necessarily needing acid, okay? It becomes thicker and tighter than a jam or a marmalade predominantly, okay? So there are those two things. The biggest thing here is low and slow. Low and slow. That is the whole point of confit. What else? What other protein or vegetable? How else do we ever cook a protein or vegetable completely submerged in oil? See, Dawn.
Deep
Poached.
frying.
Yep.
Deep frying. Yeah, poached and deep frying. Great. So what do we know about deep frying? What's the most important thing with that oil?
Needs to be hot.
Needs to be hot, right? And is deep frying a long process or a quick process?
Quick.
Quick. All right. So when we're talking about deep frying, we're talking about high heat, quick cooking times. Okay. We're talking about confit, low heat, longer cooking times, slower and longer. Okay. Now, poach, you bring up a good point. Yes, you can definitely poach things in oil, such as fish or different ingredients. It is similar to a confit, but a bit different. But yes, essentially when it's slowly cooked in oil, yes, that is. If you're poaching in oil as opposed to another cooking liquid, that's what we'd get. So, great job, everybody. Now, with this long and slow cooking of the meat, right, or potatoes, what do we think is happening with that meat? What do we think is the best type of meat for this cooking process? Remember, when we have high heat, such as saute, right? We're doing high heat. We have certain types of cuts of meat we want to use for that high heat, quick cooking. What type of cuts of meat do you think is beneficial and best utilized for confit? Robin? Robin?
Oh, meat with a lot of fat in it.
Okay. I like where you're going. Definitely is going to have a bit more fat. What cuts of meat, right? If we're talking about a bird, right? Whether it's chicken or duck or any type of poultry, are we going to want to be confiting those breasts or the legs?
Legs, dark meat. Breast,
Bingo.
your breast will dry out.
There, exactly. You hit it right on the head right there. All right. The breast will dry out. Okay. This is most suitable to legs. Legs, thighs. Sure, you can do wings as well. So for this assignment, you're actually going to be using, if you've got the access and the availability to use duck legs, go for it. Otherwise, chicken legs, that's what the recipe calls for. That's what we're going to suggest. Okay. I want to pull up the recipe really quickly and then kind of dive deeper into this. But let's get going. Chef, anything that you want to add right now?
No, so far so good.
All right, great. All right. Well, so, hello.
Got it?
Yeah,
Oh.
just trying to, I just lost you guys, which happens. All right, here we go. So, excuse me, the recipe for the chicken confit, okay? Chicken parts, preferably legs or wings, right? Thighs will also do the trick. Legs are your best move here, all right? Buy the leg and thigh together, hack them up, separate, freeze those thighs, or do separate them out, right? That's your more cost-efficient way to get those legs. Remember, wings are expensive. So if you're working on a budget, go for those legs, all right? The wings tend to get expensive, at least where I live and in most places, right? Because wings are not a dime a dozen, okay? Now, what's important here? What do we notice about this? Step 1, rub chicken with spices and allow to sit overnight in the refrigerator. What do we think the reason for that is?
It allows the chicken to kind of absorb all those herbs and spices.
Definitely. Awesome. And what else might it do? Remember, we're putting salt, right? We're going to put salt on meat.
The salt kind of draws the moisture out.
Bingo. Exactly. All right, great. So that is really important. So what does that mean? Plan ahead. All right, this recipe is going to take a little bit more than just one day, knock it out on Tuesday. Plan ahead. Get those chicken legs coated, sitting overnight. All right. Now, something to note here in the ingredients, really important, powdered bay leaf, okay? Don't worry about it. If you don't have powdered bay leaf, can't find it that often, just throw in a couple leaves, really easy, all right? Or break up a leaf, okay? If you were doing a massive amount in-house, you could take a bunch of bay leaves, you could process that, grind it all, and then you'd have freshly ground bay leaves. But otherwise, just crumble up a bay leaf, okay? Now, as you can see, 300 degrees, right? You're gonna completely submerge that chicken in oil. This is really important. If you put, let me see if I can get a photo. If you put, let's say we put in a shallow pan, I put my chicken legs in there, they've been curing overnight, and I only fill that oil up halfway. And I put it in the oven. How am I cooking that? What technique is that? Is that a technique?
That's more baking it. It's not completely submerged.
Exactly, Robin, right? You're gonna have part of that submerged in the fat. You're gonna have another part that's exposed to the air, but we've got a little tin foil top on there, so it's gonna keep it moist, right? But it is not, first of all, going to be equal, and it is not confit chicken.
That's what I was going to say, and it doesn't cook it evenly all the way
Exactly.
through, the top part is going to be more raw than the part that's in the oil.
Exactly. And guess what? One of the best things about this recipe and any confit, you're throwing in the oven, it's completely submerged. So you don't need to worry about rotating that, right? Getting even cooking. Nope. You put it in and you let it do its work. Slow, low, and gentle. Okay. You want that meat to be falling off the bone. Now, another really important part. Strain the fat and save for another use. What do we know about oil and utilizing it?
It's reusable.
Exactly, right? So why would we want to throw out all this oil that has not even actually, remember, oils have smoking points, okay? This oil hasn't been scorched, it hasn't been burned, it hasn't been overused. Like in a fryer, who's ever worked with a fryer where you have to change the oil eventually, right? But every night you strain it off, you circle it up, save it, reserve it, use it for the next day, right? This oil has not been oxidized. It has not been put to such a high temperature that it's not going to handle it, all right? It can be reused again. Save that fat, okay? If you want, this is just an option, right? It is a lot of oil, right? And you'll see for our recipe for the olive oil and garlic confit red potatoes, we're also, I'm going to show you here, sorry, in the photo requirements, okay, drained and reserved oil. We need to see that, okay, for both your potatoes as well as your chicken. So if you're tight on a budget, I highly recommend making one, straining that oil off. You can use that, let it cool down. Let it cool down. You could use that in the other one, okay? Otherwise, go with as the recipe states, right? Using canola oil for the chicken confit and olive oil or a blend for the confit potatoes. You're also gonna probably need a bit more than 8 ounces here on the olive oil, unless you're, correct me if I'm wrong, chef, unless you're using a fairly small container, so that your potatoes are fully submerged.
Yeah, that's what it's set up. That's what it's set up for, is a small tight container, so the oil raises up when you put the potatoes in. But if you had something that was wider, like a baking pan, you would need more oil the wider that you got. Yes. Yep.
Again, we want to make sure these are fully submerged.
I used
Okay.
a small shallow pan on mine, and it still took a little more oil than that, about 3 ounces more than what the recipe called for.
Perfect. Okay, so there you have it, right? So about 3 ounces, 11 to 12 ounces you're going to need. All right, keep that small, keep it tight, and keep it submerged. Now, what's really important also here in this step, combining the olive oil, garlic, and herbs, heat gently. Okay, why are we suggesting this to be a gentle heat up with garlic and herbs?
Don't want to burn them.
Boom, exactly. What happens when we start to get a lot of high heat on garlic and herbs? What happens to that
It's
flavor
bitter.
profile? Bitter, exactly. Exactly. All right. But what happens if we were to skip this step?
The oil would be infused with the flavors of the garlic and the spices.
Bingo. You guys are on fire tonight. I love this. Absolutely fantastic. All right. You guys are spot on with everything. I'm really very happy. Keep it up. This is fantastic. So again, very similar, right? Small baking pan, pull that oil covered 275. You're going to drop the temp and it's about 25 degrees lower. Put it in, right? You might need to turn those potatoes, okay, if necessary. Again, draining that oil, saving it. So either do one and then the other, conserve your oil, or go for it. And again, label, save that, write it on, use it for something else later. I'm just going to pull up these photo requirements again because I want to make sure everybody's checking this out, right? So we really do need to see all of these critical steps. When you start missing these steps, your end product is not going to be the same. It's not going to have the same flavor profile, okay? Attention to detail. 24 hours ahead of time for that garlic, for that chicken be sitting. So that was said, that salt draws out some of that moisture, starts to get a little more flavor. Okay. Chef, anything else really important to point out? And
Actually wanted to piggyback exactly what you just said.
okay.
When we talk about cooking, a lot of it is processes. This is something that processes are going to be extremely important. If you just take the chicken, throw some seasoning on it, put it in the oil, cook it till it's done, it's going to be greasy. If you let it sit overnight, if you start that cure, it's not going to be greasy. It's going to fall off the bone. The oil is going to be infused better. So this is a really big thing about processes. This is definitely not a la carte item. This is something that you have to take your time with. And honestly, you want to take your time with it because you're going to have a much better understanding at the end. So definitely on the chicken, and same thing with the oil. You have to give that a head start. If you're cutting potatoes 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch thick, if you just put the oil, the raw garlic in there, by the time those potatoes are done, is really when the oil is starting to get it fused to that heat. So you're going to draw pretty much little to no flavor on that. So you want to give those things a head start.
Awesome. Thank you, Chef. I always love that support. You're hearing it from Chef Greg as well, okay? It's not just the crazy lady talking on the screen. No, I'm just kidding. It's the other voice that you hear on your feedback. So listen up, guys, right? Order of operations, technique, processes. There's reasons. There's madness behind the methods, all right? There's a reason for everything that we do, everything, okay? The science of it, how it reacts, how it changes, texture. Now, I want to give you a little photo of something and tell me what you think, how this color was achieved. So here we go. Wrong page. There we go. All right. So confit, duck leg. All right. Now, we're just talking about how the confit is going to be low and slow, right? Fully submerged. What color do we think that skin is going to have when it's finished? Low and slow cooking, fully submerged. We haven't seared it. We haven't applied any high heat.
Mine was lightly brown when it came out of the oven.
Lightly brown, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
very lightly
exactly.
brown.
Yeah, like the second plate.
Okay, so now how do you think you get that delicious, let's just take a look at this one, right? How do you think they got that delicious, crispy, golden brown crust and texture on that confit chicken, right? Or duck leg, so it's been slowly cooked. You got a little coloration because of the Maillard reaction. Remember Maillard reaction? Okay. How do you think we get this nice, crispy, tough, crusty GBD skin on?
Maybe under the broiler.
Great. That's one option. What else?
Another neat trick is cleaning the meat with sour orange. It gives it a nice orange finish. That's just another trick.
Definitely. So that is going to impart flavor, and I really want to be focusing on that color, right? So you've got the broiler, okay? How else are you going to get a nice crust on a piece of meat that's been slowly cooking?
Pan fry first.
I just saw it in the chat. Put it in the pan really quickly. Yep, you're going to want to sear that off, okay? That's how you're going to get that extra crunch, that extra crispy skin, that extra color, that extra texture. Because remember, that confit should be really tender. So this gives a nice contrast. You get a crispy skin with this unbelievably delicious, melt in your mouth, but not greasy, okay? Tender and flavorful meat. When confit is done improperly, okay, it will taste greasy. Just like when you fry something improperly at the wrong temperature, right? Comes out greasy. Same thing can happen here, okay? So pay attention to processes. Now, great idea with the orange. Orange is a traditional flavor component that pairs great with duck, okay? So duck à l'orange, right? Duck with orange sauce, old school classic French dish, 80s, 90s, everywhere. Really wonderful. So remember also when you're thinking about when you're creating dishes, what flavor profiles come to mind? What spices would go well with this? What spices go well with duck and wild game or chicken? Okay, this is how you start to experiment, right? And start to think about outside of the box. How now that I've learned this technique, right? So now I've mastered this great technique of making confit chicken. How can I then, the next time trying this, what can I add to this? How can I change? What can I serve it with? What's going to enhance that? All right. Highly suggest, if you don't already have a book called either the Flavor Bible or what is it called? Culinary Arts? What is it called? Yeah,
Food. Is the Food Bible?
the Food Bible. Yeah, the Flavor Bible. And then there's another one called their first one is what I used to use. I'll pull it up right now. But it goes all into flavor profile combining. Let me just do this. Flavor. I think. One sec. Yeah.
Flavor Matrix?
No. So there's the Flavor Bible, and then I've got it. Sorry, class. I just think this is really important. I don't know about you, Chef Greg, but I used to reference books like this to start to understand flavor profiles. Because if you don't know them, you have to learn them, right? And study and understand what other people have been doing and combining, right? There's recipes that are going to be in place, and we know those combinations go together. But there's also saying, hey, I've got a great reference, and I'm going to use this to learn. Okay, let me see if I can. Yep, culinary artistry. That's what it is. So here it is. Let me just show you all. This is, they updated and came up with the Flavor Bible after this, but this was the old school. This was like the first edition. Culinary artistry, okay? Then this is the newer, cooler one, Flavor Bible, okay? Written by the same people. Really excellent. It will break down items into, like we just said, how do you pair flavors? What goes well together? It's how you start to create your own flavor profile and understanding of how things work together. Because not everything works together, okay?
I wondered how it would taste with Italian spices.
Yeah, see, that's something you could definitely play around with, right? Those are dry ingredients that you're going to be adding. You could. Okay. Now, some of the ingredients that are with the confit here, though, are those really kind of warm spices, as they will call it. Okay, those are warm spices. Not a huge amount of herbs in there. We got those cloves, that nutmeg. Those are all warm spices. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't play around with it. But Italian spices are going to be more on that oregano and herbaceous level, okay? Which can do, but you might, unless you're infusing that oil to start with, you might not get a huge end result. Remember, those dry spices tend to leach in. Now, what else? This is something that's important and interesting. What do we know about cloves? Let's start really thinking about preservation. Does anybody know what before? You should have learned some of this in CU132 Cuisines of the World. How are people flavoring, if you didn't live where spices were growing, okay, how were people seasoning their meat? What type of meat and proteins, what were they seasoning it with? Did they have spices before the spice trade opened, right? Awesome, Dawn. They didn't have spices, right? That's why when spices finally came in, we started getting them. Huge demand. Guess why? Black pepper, spices. What does it do? What do these do? Does anybody know what they do other than give flavor?
Off the top of my head, what about texture?
Texture, you know what? That definitely does have an impact. That is a fantastic answer. Yes. What else?
Some act as preservatives.
Who was that, Robin?
Yeah.
Robin, on fire tonight. You're exactly right. They act as a preservative. Black pepper, clove, et cetera, et cetera. These act as preservatives. Okay. They also, way back in the day, used to mask off flavors. So that meat that was kind of turning, right? Just load it up with some spices. It's gonna cover that up. Think I'm kidding, but this is the reality, right? What was refrigeration like back then? There wasn't a lot. They got spice and it was like, oh my gosh, food just went up a huge amount. Black pepper, huge in preservatives. Okay. Preservation, exactly. Cloves. What does anybody know? Who's ever taken a clove, right, and put that in their mouth and sucked on it, tried to taste it, chew on it, right? I see Robin's with me, right? Yeah. It's spicy, right? It's almost hot. Cloves are used when you have, look, clove, it actually looks like a tooth, right? If you've got this is like old school stuff. You had a tooth injury, some pain, you'd suck on a clove, right? Has some good antiseptic. It's got some micro oils, right, that are releasing, that are preservatives, that are helping, okay, antimicrobial, okay. Clove spicy. So spices have a lot more to do with everything we think. If you look at the majority of your cured sausages, meats, etc., look at the flavor profile. Start looking at those ingredient labels. Look at what's in there. Allspice. Oh, okay, another one. What are all? You look at all these herbs and spices that consistently go into cured products, and you will see a pattern. Flavor enhancement. But way back in the day, what it comes down to was that it aided in preservation. Okay, so yeah, numbing. It numbs your teeth and your mouth. So, does anybody have any questions on this so far? What we're talking about, preservation, how it all starts to go back, right? These are old traditions that have never changed, that are still in use today. Chef, I see you getting excited. Anything?
No, I said that in all the feedbacks.
Oh, great.
No, I was just saying how, like, we change technology, but we don't necessarily change these techniques at all. We still, because it's based off of necessity, we have to make food last. So we still have the same problem that we did hundreds of years ago. Like the canning process was discovered by Napoleon. He sent out a bunch of people because he didn't have enough food to feed the soldiers. They had to make something last because they had huge armies that they were traveling with. So he sent out scientists and people to discover the start of canning processes. So each soldier could have their own individual cans. They were responsible for them, and then they could feed them on the long journeys. So there definitely is a lot of history behind it too. Even if it's something like hanging apples outside to dry, you could take it hundreds and hundreds of years ago of why they did that and how they started it.
Exactly. So it's pretty cool when you really start getting into the nitty gritty of it and how food roamed around and how these processes don't change, like Chef said. And they came out of necessity, and they're not going to leave, right? If they were going to leave, they would be gone. We're still drying fruits. We're still jamming. We're still pickling. We're still drying, curing, et cetera, canning. Now, knowing and having those skills in your pocket elevate you, right? In the kitchen world. Oh, I know how I can do that. I know how to do that. I understand the process of that. Let's just get a quick refresher. What is preservation doing? What are some of the most important things that preservation is doing to your produce and or your meat?
Curing.
Sorry, Francisco? I think that was Francisco. I'm not sure.
It was, and he said curing.
Curing. We're losing you. Hey, Francisco, if you can, drop it in the chat. Okay, we've got prolonging shelf life. Yep, exactly. Making it last year. What are those important factors, though, right? Important factors that go into preservation. We talked about this last week. I'm just trying to jog your memory, keep everybody on top. Food cost, right? What are we trying to remove? To make something, yeah, it removes moisture. What else? Moisture is one of them. What else? Remember, you can just say something. It's okay if it's not right.
Well, I know the salt content increases, which makes the food less palatable to bacteria.
Yep. So we've got salt. We've got that reducing that moisture, right? Bacteria coming into play, right? Acidity and pH balance, right? That's that vinegar, right? That acid. So we're removing and or at least reducing and trying to control the speed of growth of bacteria, right? We're trying to eliminate that by either removing oxygen, right? Changing the pH, removing moisture. These are all things to help prevent microbes from rapidly producing and spoiling the food, right? That's why if you were to store that confit meat, guess what, guys and gals? You're storing that meat in its fat. So if we're working at a restaurant, I made a half hotel pan of confit chicken legs. All right, I'm gonna let that all cool down in the oil as well. Remember, don't go grabbing that out immediately. You're dealing with hot oil. Also be careful, pay attention when you're removing that. Accidents happen all the time in the kitchen. You really wanna try and make it not be with oil, okay? Bless you, chef. So be careful, right? And again, if I made that half hotel pan, let it cool. I don't have orders. I'm getting that prepped ahead, right? I'm going to put that in the walk-in once it's cool. It's going to stay. Everything's going to stay submerged in that oil, okay? Then when I get the order, I'm going to take out a few, boom. Then guess what? If I was doing duck confit, I'm going to have a bunch of duck fat. Do you know what duck fat and beef fat and chicken fat and all animal fats have in common?
Flavor.
Boom. Yeah, exactly. Right? It's not just like an oil or a butter. There's a lot more different notes going on there. Does anybody know that McDonald's used to fry their French fries? So if you ever talk to, like, I know my parents' age always talk about how McDonald's French fries used to be so much better. You know why? They were fried in beef tallow, beef fat. Different flavor, different texture, right? All different fats and oils have different smoking points. Imparts a different flavor profile. Chef, what's that restaurant? The duck fat restaurant.
I'll bring it up. Duck fat in Bangor, Maine. They cook everything, fry everything in duck fat. The whole entire menu is just all duck fat. Let me find it.
McDonald's had to end up removing the beef fat from their French fries because vegetarians were buying fries. Then they found out, hey, wait, we're eating cow fat the whole time, right? Get that out, okay? Changes have to happen.
McDonald's fries did used to be a lot better, though.
Yeah.
Like, they did. So this place is called Duck Fat. It's in Maine. Even when, just had it. So it says fried in duck fat, just right at the top. So everything that they make is just all cooked in duck fat, seared. Anytime they have to use oil at all, they use duck fat for everything. But this place is awesome. If you ever find yourself in Maine, definitely worth the journey because duck fat is delicious.
Duck fat is delicious. Not for everyday use, but every once in a while it really adds a different note. A few more things and we're going to wrap this show up. Who has ever heard of matzo ball soup? Matzo ball soup, right?
I
Old
have.
classic New York Jewish deli, right? Does anybody know how you make the matzo balls? What's one of the key ingredients, not just the matzah, what's binding those matzo balls together?
Fat.
I heard fat. What specific type of fat? Anybody know? Duck fat? Good guess. It's poultry. Chicken, yeah. It is called, in other terms, schmaltz. Okay? Schmaltz. So when you've got that, say you're making a chicken soup, right? And you get a lot of fat on top, take that off, you can save it. Okay? Again, it's all about that bit of sustainability. If you're throwing fat out, you're throwing out flavor. Fat that's utilized, right? Usable. Okay? Always, a few things to keep in mind when we're talking about fat. Be sure that if you're saving and reusing, that you are checking to make sure, hey, what's that color? What does it smell like, right? Is the product that I'm getting out, is it turning brown too quickly, right? That probably means that your oil's kind of getting that spent sense, okay? Because if it's turning too quickly, all right? So keep an eye, because oil and rancid oil, is really unappealing, right? And rancidity happens in all fats, so even nuts, okay? Who's ever smelled nuts or tasted one, you're like, oh, something's off. You start to learn the smell, yep. You start to learn the smell of what rancid fat smells like, rancid oils. Stay on top of that, right? Refrigerate, keep that cool, prolong that shelf life. Okay, cool. Does anybody have any questions? No? All right. Well, I hope you all enjoy this recipe because it is really fun and it is different. It's a different style. It's a different method. If you're going to make both of this, I would highly suggest whipping up a quick little like leafy green salad with a nice a vinaigrette to kind of cut some of that fattiness. Okay. Or perhaps do the confit for one chicken for one meal and the confit potatoes with another one. Right? That's okay too, because otherwise it's gonna be a lot of fat. So maybe break it up. Just thoughts. Or you can go ahead and have a duck fat, have a full confit day. All right, whatever serves you well. All right, cool. Well, if you have questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you all. Thank you, Chef. And let's push it last few weeks. Take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.